Open the window of heaven, cup starting blessings to come down on this platform, Parliament House, and all get the members of Parliament. Jimmy got good plus thinking, good plus wisdom, good plus spirit. Look at the managing people, but you legally have time. You're going up Jesus to come. Me pray and put in prime ministers, and all get the ministers of Parliament. Want the members, you go humbly, want the opposition leader, and all get us the members too. Me pray and put in go humbly. God from the heaven. Before him all get a sin me play God. Larry name don't play on the book of life, but since a prayer Lord display known. You start one them play Lord display all open in display meeting. You go in up Lord display year 2021. Lord name Lord Jesus we pray. You all get a prayer. Our Father in heaven.
Honorable members, I present a copy of the National Court Order which set as a Court of Disputed Returns, EP number 73 of 2017, dated 15 April 2021 in a matter between Mr. Don Pom Collier and Mr. Luke Alfred Manasseh, in which the court ordered that 1. All relief sought in the first respondent's notice of motion filed on 1st April 2021 is refused. 2. It is declared that the result of the recounts of votes for the 2017 Kandep Open Electorate presented to this court pursuant to the order of the Supreme Court of 21 December 2020 in SCRA v. EP 11 and 12 of 2019 through the affidavit of the returning officer, Reverend Tom Sine, filed 7 April 2021, showing Don Pompolier as the winning candidate with 22,237 votes and Luke Alfred Manasseh as runner-up with 21,033 votes, is accepted by the court. 3. The following declaration shall take effect at 3 p.m. on 19 April 2021. A. It is declared that the first respondent who was returned as elected at the 2017 Kandep Open election was not duly elected, and B. It is declared that the petitioner who was not returned as elected is the duly elected member for Kandep Open following the 2017 election. The order of 7 April 2021 requiring Reverend Tom Sine to remain in the National Capital District is discharged. 5. The respondent shall pay the petitioner's cost of that part of the petition pertaining to the presentation of the recount on a party-party basis, which shall, if not agreed, be taxed. 6. The Registrar of the National Court shall, in accordance with Section 221 of the Organic Law on National and Local Level Government Elections, promptly forward a copy of this order to the Clerk of the National Parliament. Sergeant-at-Arms, admit him. Honorable Member, you will read after me. I,
Don Pompolye,
realizing fully the responsibilities to which I am committing myself and the consequences of not living up to this declaration, and those responsibilities, freely and willingly declare my loyalty to the independent state of Papua New Guinea, and its people and to the Constitution of Papua New Guinea, adopted by the Constituent Assembly on 15 August 1975, as altered from time to time in accordance with its provisions, and promise that I will uphold the Constitution and the laws of Papua New Guinea. Declaration of office. I,
Don Pompolye,
do promise and declare that I will well and truly serve the independent state of Papua New Guinea,
promise and declare that I will well and truly serve the independent state of Papua New Guinea
and its people in the office of the Member of Parliament.
and its people in the office of the Member of Parliament.
Honorable Member, me congratulate you long. Kisim despla. Siap lo, kande bopen gen through lo court. Score him the order it opening. So congratulations lo you, lo despla. Thank you. Honourable members, I lay on the table the return to the writ which is His Excellency the Governor General issued on 3rd December 2020 for a by-election of a member to serve the Bougainville Provincial Electorate following the resignation of Mr. Joe Lera as Member of Parliament representing the people of Bougainville in the provincial seat, and that by the honoursman on the writ it was certified that Mr. Peter Lemai Siamalili Jr. was duly elected as the member for Bougainville Provincial Electorate. Honourable members, I have received a return to the writ and administered the Declaration of Loyalty and Declaration of Office on Wednesday, 24th February 2021 at the State Dining Room. I welcome the new member. Honourable members, the Honourable Member of Lokandep, I may come inside. Now, me ba me give him some lig minute or some 5 minutes, lo make him lig talk him like make him lo this la floor. The Honourable Member for Kandep.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Let me express to you my profound gratitude for your scheduling my swearing in on this day when the House sits, and also giving me the time to make a few remarks. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I am happy and cheerful that the Court of Dispute returns. The National Court and the Supreme Courts have made a declaration in the seat of Kandep as I being the duly elected MP based on free and fair election by the people. And I'm so thankful for that. That also signifies a very important fact that a wrong has been corrected. A wrong in the electoral process, abuse of the process, rigging of the elections, declaring a member on the pro-parliament for the pro-parliament to represent Kandep, not on genuine votes expressed by the people. And I'm happy that the wrong has been corrected. But Mr. Speaker, not just that. That also means today that we don't give up. It signifies the spirit of not giving up. It's about not giving up on a stand for the people who represent. In this case, the people of Kandep, people of Hanga, and people of PNG, from where my constituency lies. It's about not backing down, standing on what is right. Mr. Speaker, it's about a drive to making sure that the rule of law in the country is always complied with by everyone. Even those that in constitutional offices, the members of parliament, the security forces, and in various other sectors of the public servants and in the country. It is about transparent leadership and good governance. It's about the need and desire for all of us and this nation to not to give up on pursuing those values that are correct, that are right, the little things that matter most. Mr. Speaker, in the Kandep, the declaration made by the court, and Mr. Speaker, you're swearing me in as the duly elected member of Kandep signifies those values. Let me also say that I myself as a person stand on what I believe is right for the people. There should be no compromise, no giving up or giving in to what is good for the people. This House can stand up tall and proud to delivering a transformation good for the people. I stand up for those values. We can't compromise wrong to become norm in the country. We cannot compromise the breach of laws to make it look good. We cannot set bad examples that our children can see that as a norm for the future. I said that we stand up to provide that leadership that is transparent and that is good for all. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude, because my 5 minutes, I've got 2 minutes on the board. I'd like to also express my forgiveness to Alfred Manasseh. I'd like to express my forgiveness to the People's National Congress Party. I'd like to forgive those that rigged the election in Kandep. I forgive them. I forgive all. I will not call everybody, but on forgiving them, Mr. Speaker, I too like to confess if there's something that I did that was not good. To other brothers, I like to confess my sins too, that they too can forgive me. You know, Mr. Speaker, this country will only be saved by us working together. In Kandep, I want to work together with Alfred Manasseh. The same thing in all elections of Papua New Guinea. In this house, the opposition, the government, we should work together. We have 12 months before the next elections. What can save this country is us working together as a whole team, addressing the issues that face us today. The 4 years has been a blessing in disguise for me, Mr. Speaker. The 4 years of my staying out of the parliament has been a blessing in disguise. It has taught me very valuable experiences, very precious lessons. I find from the outset that our systems of governance have collapsed. It requires the Prime Minister and the opposition leader, all of us to work together under the leadership of the Prime Minister, Honorable James Marape, and under the leadership of the opposition leader to work together to finding a solution that we can save this country, transform it even before the next elections. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by saying the Electoral Commission is not in its proper state to run the next elections. I can tell you from my experience, it is not in the proper state of mind to run the next elections. We, the sitting members, say we'll have to rig to come in if we want to win, because the system is not working. And we will not want to rig. We don't want to cause harder to suffer like I have suffered, the people of Kandep have suffered because of the rigging took place in Kandep. Mr. Speaker, this House has a bigger responsibility than personal enmities or political rivalries. Let's work together, because the last 4 years I've seen that this thing, the saving this country lies in us working together, not discriminating, but the government and opposition, let's work together and we can bring about some meaningful transformation to Papua New Guinea. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. My time is up.
Siatur, ila give him little time no, Honorable Regional Member of Bougainville, so I make him little top.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity and the people of Bougainville the opportunity to express our voice in Parliament during this very special and challenging time. I say challenging as we just returned to this house after burying our late Grand Chief, Sir Michael Sumari, just a month ago. And I'm sure the nation is still silently grieving for him. And we will still grieve for him as long as this Parliament exists. This is also a challenging time as the nation and the world as a whole is facing the imminent threat of COVID-19. And we slowly, reluctantly, in our daily lives, get back into the new passing. This is also a time when we face another challenge to determine the political future of Bougainville during the ratification process, as shown by the referendum where 98% of Bougainvilleans voted for independence. Apart from the challenges faced by this Parliament to implement the Bougainville Peace Agreement, we just can't afford to forget the internationally politicized, but sadly non-nationally publicized climate change refugees on Bougainville, of which I'll elaborate a little bit further in my speech. Today I'm privileged and proud for my people of Bougainville to have voted me as the regional MP. For me as the new regional MP is the aspiration of young men and women from Bougainville, as majority of my voters were those between the ages of 18 and 25. This is the sign of a new beginning, elected as a young leader, and it marks a new political landscape for Bougainville. It trumpets the changing of the guard from the old generation to the new, reflecting from the days of Sir John Momis, Sir Paul Lapun, Grand Chief Sir Michael, late Sir Michael, and of course Sir Julius Chan, just to name a few. They all did their very best for Bougainville, and they're all an identity of our South Pacific region. Today we are the new and the young Bougainvillean leaders like the Bougainville President, Ismail Toroma, of which I also represent, together with young new leaders of PNG, like our vibrant Prime Minister, James Marape, Sepik Governor, Allan, Northern Governor for Oro, Gary Juffa, Goila MP William Sam, Peter Numu, Honorable Rainbow Paita, and others. And we will continue the All Guards legacy and the vision for Bougainville and PNG as a whole. We will be the first on the floor of Parliament in the new generation taking this responsibility to give hope for our future in the midst of COVID-19. And that is to encourage and inspire young women and men from Bougainville and PNG to step up and take responsibility. Although the term for parliamentary leader is 5 years, and coming in at the back end would be a big challenge. There will be a lot of expectations on Bougainville, but I'm focused in representing my people for the next 12 months. I'm pleased to announce to the people of PNG and Bougainville and all our development partners that for the first time I have the endorsement of our leadership on the ground to represent them on the floor of Parliament. I will ensure that I continue to embrace Prime Minister Marape's aspirations to make PNG a strong economically independent nation, and at the same time embracing the aspirations of our people on Bougainville. I will play the role of as a conduit between the national government and the ABG. I play a role where you could almost see me as an ambassador, as a representative of the entire region of Autonomous Region of Bougainville on this floor of Parliament. My priorities in aligning all Bougainville MPs and the ABG over the next couple of months, I will be concentrating on getting data from around Arab so that my plan will be more responsible. I've established a strong relationship with the ABG President, Ismail Toroma, and I would echo the same sentiments and aspirations of the ABG. Between the two of us, we have established a cordial relationship that what the national leaders are doing can be a lot more aligned to what the ABG wishes to achieve on the ground. Because they, the ABG government on the ground, we will ensure that there is collaboration between the two governments. And a part of my responsibility is also to solicit the support of the open members, both the North, Central and South Bougainville. So they will align with me on the same plan in terms of service delivery and development. I look forward to another 12 months, and 2022 is around the corner. And if I do it right now, I'm sure I will give the confidence back to my people and PNG. And I want to be seen as someone who wants to break down the mistrust, the suspicious between the national government and the ABG in terms of misunderstanding of transfer of powers and the allocation of funds from Port Moresby to Bougainville. And I'm sure there are outstanding issues raised during the annual supervisory body meetings. I strongly believe in pushing for political independence for Bougainville as soon as possible. That's what Bougainvilleans have wanted. But I too believe what the Prime Minister James Marape wants for Bougainvilleans, and that is before political independence, our Bougainville or Autonomous Region of Bougainville must be economically independent first. And so I will work closely with the national government and the ABG to ensure that the Prime Minister's commitment of 100 million per year, 2022 to 2030, is transferred. And if it means that funds should be acquired under the Public Finance Management Act so that the next batch of funds will be released, then so be it. I also look forward to the government shares in the Bougainville Copper Limited to be transferred to the Bougainville Mineral Limited, BML. As Prime Minister James Marape had said during the recent JSB meeting, that the government would give all its shares to BML, and BML would manage shares on behalf of ABG and Panguna landowners. The government owned 36.4% of the BCL shares since 1975. These functions have to be transferred as soon as possible to enable Bougainville to have economic independence. These are some of the transferring of all the powers of powers to ABG as stipulated in the Bougainville Peace Agreement. These are functions we have been lacking to build our economy since getting the autonomous status in 2005. When we have these powers, it will enable us to generate our own economy. Also, the formula of the tax collection, which right now is at 30% collected on Bougainville, stays in Bougainville, and 70% comes back to the Internal Revenue Commission, collected by the national government. As per the JSP resolution, we would like the formula to be reversed, and 70% collected in Bougainville stays in Bougainville, and 30% returns to the IRC, which I believe has been resolved in the recent JSP meeting also. The Prime Minister James Marape says that ABG will receive 20 million of the 200 million allocated for small medium enterprise. And I must thank the NDB and the team at the NDB for allowing that to happen already. I'm aware that the national government has an outstanding of 622 million it owed to ABG in restoration development grant. 620 million has been outstanding for the last 18 to 19 years. And the JSB has affirmed without any shadow of doubt that 621 million confirmed by an independent United Nations assessment is the actual amount owed by the government to Bougainville as far as the 2001 peace agreement is concerned. And yes, Bougainville needs to grow its economy to be ready to determine its full political future. Right now, there is a huge gap between revenues raised locally and the total expenditure of ABG. In 2020, for example, the total ABG budget was about 440 million, of which only 47 was raised within Arab, or the Autonomous Region of Bougainville, meaning that the rest of the amount is nearly 393 were funded through the national budget. But we believe that the total cost of the public service provided in Arab is much larger than 393 million. Another challenge that we also face is the climate change refugees on Bougainville. To tell you the truth, our very own climate change refugees from the Atoll district of Katrets, Modlok, Nissan, Tasman, and Feed have totally neglected by this parliament in Waigani, and also in Bougainville House of Representatives, in Kubu. Not only the Atoll districts, but other low-lying islands in Bougainville like Petat, Spora, and Saposa, Machugan. We tend to focus more on BPA, but never, and I must stress, never, on our very own climate change refugees. I am very thankful that we now can address climate change refugees in the country as outlined in the Papua New Guinea Sustainable Development Goal 13 Roadmap Report, an empowering response to challenges and opportunities posted by climate change 30 actions by 2030. And if that mountainous, academically and technically detailed report be translated on the ground to address climate change refugees on Bougainville, then that will very much be appreciated by the people of these affected islands in the atolls of Bougainville. Generally, the climate change refugees on Bougainville were forgotten by both ABG and the national government, and they had to fend for themselves. At this juncture, I would like to thank the local non-government organizations, Tulele, Pesia, for taking the lead to resettle the affected Cartwrights Islanders at Waruru Village in Tinputs. I also like to thank the Waruru villages and the Catholic Church for assisting in relocation exercise since 2009. I also thank the leaders from Nissan, Modlok, and Feet, Tasman, to go out of their own ways to negotiate with the people of the mainland of Bougainville to resettle their affected islanders. And I thank those respective people for hosting these affected islanders on their traditional land. I am now calling on both the national government and the ABG that if we can really address the climate change refugees on Bougainville in the next 12 months before the next general election, then that will be better. I'm aware that the Asian Development Bank has provided a total of 98 million, which is equivalent to 345 million as of July 2020 to address climate change impacts globally. And apart from the ADB funds, I'm sure there are other sources of international funding like UNDP, purposely to address the effects of climate change. So my good Prime Minister and Environmental Conservation and Climate Change Minister, Honorable Weramori, if you both can help access some of these funds through the Climate Change and Development Authority to help address the climate change, will be very much appreciated by my people and those that have been neglected in the atolls of Bougainville. Fellow Papua New Guineans and Bougainvilleans, to conclude, I want to say that I'm a symbolic of trust between Bougainvilleans and Papua New Guineans. I want us to work together to draw down powers from Waigani to Bougainville, both political and economic powers, to successfully implement the BPA and the climate change refugees. I want both the national government and the ABG to admit the truth that who is causing the blockade. Is it the ABG or the national government? We have to resolve this mistrust. Only then the autonomous region of Bougainville and PNG can face this together into the future generation. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, Olgata Parliament leaders Blomi, on behalf of my family. Me talk big thank you, all people Blomi long Bougainville, long give me this opportunity to express him sincere gratitude Blomi long Makim, all people Blomi long Bougainville, long this house. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable members, I have to inform the Parliament that the Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Broadcasting of Parliamentary Proceedings met today and resolved that A, the National Broadcasting Corporation will be allowed to broadcast live on radio questions without notice as part of its community obligation, and B, the National Television Service Kundu 2, MTV, and TVWAN will be allowed to telecast live questions without notice for news purposes for the duration of this meeting. Honourable members, I have to inform the Parliament that the Acting Speaker has, in accordance with Section 110 of the Constitution, certified 15 acts and a law made by the National Parliament. A list of these acts and a law will appear in today's minutes of proceedings. List of acts. Honourable Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I move that this Parliament express its deep regret at the death on the 19th of December 2020 of the former Prime Minister of the independent state of Papua New Guinea, the Right Honourable Sir Marape Marape, KT, KCMG MP, the member for Mosby Northwest Open Electorate, and places on record its appreciation for his meritorious public service. Mr. Speaker, his death took all of us by surprise, and since his passing, the funeral service and his burial, the death of our great-grand chief, the late Sir Michael Thomas Omare, also took place. But we accorded great-grand chief a state funeral, and Parliament recalled that gave honor and respect to him. But today is the first opportunity Parliament has reconvened for Parliament to also give recognition and make one or two commentaries, especially by myself representing the government side in light of circumstances in which we convene in Parliament, and hopefully opposition leader, if he is present, would have spoken in respect to Sepik. And so, Mr. Speaker, before the opposition speak in respect to Sepik, I would like to place on record, firstly congratulate the two new members who have joined us on the floor. I congratulate the member for Kandep as well as the member for Bougainville Regional who had their speeches. On the occasion of Sepik's passing, the nation mourned also because Sepik served as our country's 6th Prime Minister. He was
and before politics, a very distinguished public service, public servant who served in the public service, and he stands as a giant amongst the giants of our country. Some of us, myself included in this parliament, don't come and say close to his sado. Though he was Prime Minister for only 3 short years, today the nation stands to benefit from some of the reforms he put in place in those 3 short years, in 1999 to 2002. And so I stand here not just as Prime Minister representing the entire country, but I stand here on behalf of my children and wife, on behalf of my immediate people of Hori and Tari, and also the country, to pay respect in this first instance to the late Sepik, to respect him for the work and his contribution to our country, and may his memory guide us on into the future, for us as present leaders also to contribute to lasting legacies for our country. And Sepik, monumental amongst them is the reform he put in place to the way our country's financial institutions, the reform in our state-owned enterprises took place. And today we stand in benefit to the reforms he put in place. So let me, Mr. Speaker, on this note, place my great respect to Sepik, my sympathy to the family of Sepik, who continues to mourn and in bereavement to the loss of this leader of our country. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Yalibu Pangia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of our opposition leader, the Honourable Belden Nama, who is not with us this afternoon, we on this part of the House also express our sincere gratitude to the late Sepik Marata, our former Prime Minister, our first Secretary of Finance, one of the great architects of our economy. His passing is a great loss to our nation, and we express our sincere condolences to the family, the people of Mosby Northwest, people of Gulf. We join them in sharing their loss of this great man in our country. We are certainly going to miss his contributions to this Honourable House. As the Prime Minister has stated, he has made some huge contribution to the structuring of our financial systems in our country, and great respect must be expressed by this Parliament and our country to late Sepik Marata for that contribution and many other contributions to our nation's development. He was one of the first very early public servants who graduated, one of the first to graduate from University of Papua New Guinea to join the public service, one of the first departmental heads in the country, joining Sir Rabi and Sir Charles Lepani and many others, Sir Tony Siaguru, in shaping what is our public service structure today, so that we can continue to develop our nation from that. With that, I also extend our congratulations to the Honourable Member for Kandap. Welcome back to the House. Of course, elections are elections. Let's leave it at that. And of course, on our side of the House, we also express our sincere thank you to Alfred Manasseh for his leadership, for his contribution, not only to this Parliament, but to the people of Kandap. I'm pleased to hear from the new member that they will work together over the next 12 months to ensure that our people of Kandap continue to receive the services that rightfully deserve. Also, on the same note, let me express our congratulations to the young member for Bougainville Regional. Welcome to the Honourable House, and again you will continue to serve the people of Bougainville just like many other distinguished leaders before you who have held the same position that you have. Their contribution to our nation's development is profound, and I'm certain that you will fill in those shoes very well. Once again, congratulations. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The question is that the condolence motion moved to the Prime Minister be agreed to. Those in favor say aye. Those against say no. The ayes have it. As a mark of respect to the memory of the late honorable gentleman, I invite all honorable members to rise in their places. I thank the Parliament. Petitions, Mr. Clerk? Notices?
Gives notice that this shall present a bill for an act to regulate the generation, transmission, distribution, and retailing of non-renewable energy, including A, overseeing the administration and enforcement of laws and regulations and policies governing the energy industry, and B, receiving and collecting levies, fees, tariffs, and other charges, and C, responsibility for energy research and development to implement the energy policy and law, and D, approval of the corporate policies of the subsidiary companies and affiliate entities, and E, administer the National Electrification Trust Fund and for related purposes. The Minister for Energy gives notice that he shall present a bill for an act to amend the Electricity Industry Act 2002 and for related purposes. The Minister for Intergovernment Relations gives notice that he shall present a bill for an act to amend the Kokopo City Authority Act 2015. The Minister for Intergovernment Relations gives notice that he shall present a bill for an act to amend the Lay City Authority Act 2015.
Questions without notice, 45 minutes. Honorable Member for TVWAN.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take the cue also to welcome the member for Kandep before I go to my question to this House, and also take this time to thank the outgoing member through court, Mr. Alfred, for his input and contribution in these 4 years. With that, I would like to congratulate the member for Bougainville. Thank you for joining the team here. Right, Mr. Speaker, very short question here. Would like to direct this question to Minister for Treasury. Minister for Treasury, we are aware that with the COVID now, it's hitting us very hard with the economy. And what is there? Can the Minister explain to the House or tell the House, is there any new borrowing cost that he's doing for COVID-19 that is now hitting us? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the good member for his very simple but relevant question during this sitting, and I understand the question effectively being a new borrowing costs for COVID-19 affecting or even killing the government. Well, the short answer to that question, Mr. Speaker, is no. Additional costs borrowing costs have been built into our medium-term fiscal framework that's been set out in our responsible and responsive 2021 budget. COVID-19 has created a massive 6.8 billion kina hit on our revenues over the next 4 years. In addition, it has added to our expenditures by a further 1.8 billion through 3 years of COVID-19 packages of 600 million kina each. This hit on our budget has also been incorporated into our medium-term fiscal framework. So, Mr. Speaker, we have a plan. The plan is in place. It is a good plan, endorsed by the Marape government and this government and this parliament. This framework sees rapid declines in the size of our national budget, in the size of our national deficit. Despite COVID-19, from 9% of GDP when the global pandemic hit to 7.3% this year, down to a very low 2.1% by 2024. This framework sees rapid declines in this framework sees a turnaround in our debt to GDP ratio from 51.5% this year to 50.5% in 2025 and hopefully declining thereafter. This framework sees interest costs as a share of our total expenditure staying essentially constant at 12 to 13%, with a decline from 2023 onwards. We are not going to have a debt increase by 443%, more than fourfold, so from 8 billion to 37 billion, as occurred under the former government of Peter O'Neill. We are not going to see domestic interest rate costs increase by nearly 400%, from 415 million in 2012 to a massive, gigantic 1,648 million by 2019. And we are not going to see foreign interest payments increase by nearly 1,000%, from 44 million in 2012 to 434 million by 2019. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Your Governor for Sepik, Sepik.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and may I also extend on behalf of the people of Sepik our sincere condolences to the late Right Honourable Sepik Marata, his family and his tribe and people. Let me also join in congratulating the member for Kandep, and let me also place on record to recognize the former member, Alfred Manasseh, for his significant role in securing the upgrade of Borom Airport. Mr. Speaker, I would like to place on record the gratitude of the people of Sepik for the work that he did during his time as Civil Aviation Minister. I also extend our congratulations to the new member for Bougainville Regional. Mr. Speaker, my questions without notice are directed to the Works Minister, and this is in relation to the Sepik Highway. A contract was issued under the former government to a contractor by the name of HBS, and Mr. Speaker, that contract has now failed. The Sepik Highway is now in a worse state than prior to the awarding of the contract. It is my understanding, Mr. Speaker, that this contractor had never undertaken road works previously. They were an equipment hire company based in Leh, hiring equipment to the recently completed PNG LNG project, and somehow they managed to secure a significant contract in my province. Now, Mr. Speaker, my questions to the good minister, in light of this massive failure, and in fact, they packed up and left the province without letting anyone know. They just absconded, they took off, they ran away. My people are very upset. So I want to ask the good minister, my first question is, how was this tender awarded? On what basis? How could a contractor with no previous work experience be given a significant contract like this? My second question is, who supervised the work? The work is such poor quality that while they were working on it, they would complete a section and that section would collapse within a couple of weeks. So who supervised that contract? Thirdly, when can my people expect that this incompetent work by this contractor be rectified? How soon are we going to fix the mess of HPS? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Minister for Works.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Lord. Governor Law, Sepik Law. This is a very important question. Mr. Speaker, since 2017 to date, I am not aware of I'm not aware of this contract because I did not I think participate, or it was not during my time. So Mr. Speaker, I will need to get back to the department, get some information, and then I will report back to the governor for Sepik. How was this tender awarded? Question number one. Normally, the department puts up tenders and bidders bid. Anything below 10 million is awarded by the Central Supply and Tenders Board, and anything above 10 million is then recommended to NEC, where the Minister for Works then takes the submission to NEC, and NEC awards that particular contract. But during my time, I have not taken a submission in to award the contract to this particular contractor. Who supervised the work, Mr. Speaker? Depending on the size of the contract, if it is within the capabilities of Department of Works, our works engineers supervise contracts. But if the capacity is too big, then as part of the contract, we engage consultants to manage the contract, and the Department of Works do work along with that consulting firm that supervise such contracts. When can this be rectified? Mr. Speaker, until I find out the status of this particular contract, I cannot make a commitment here, but let me go back in the department, give him information on this plan, and then from there we'll take on to the next step to rectify this mess that has been created. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Member Laba.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Once again, I want to join those who have formally congratulated the Honorable Don Collier for coming back to Parliament. Congratulations and welcome to the floor of the Honorable House, and the Honorable Peter Junior Jamalili for winning the Government Regional seat, and the vision that you have echoed. All the best to you in this challenging years, very short period, but I'm sure that all of us will back you up in your pursuit on the vision that you have articulated on the Honorable House. Also, on behalf of the people of Aba, I also follow the Prime Minister and the Honorable former Prime Minister without you for congratulations to a great leader, late Right Honorable Sepik, having had a very strong background in public service and becoming a politician in a very short period of time, introduced big reforms that Parliament, in my experience, over the full term rarely achieved. So congratulations, and the nation will miss him. But the by-elections are on, and we played that the constituency, the Moresby Northwest, will also choose the leader that they know how to recognize good leaders to this honorable house. Mr. Speaker, my question goes to the Minister for Works, who has just sat down. Having been a minister for most of my terms in Parliament, I rarely ask a question on my favorite road, which is the Magi Highway. I usually quietly ask in Cabinet the Ministers for Works over the years and never make a noise on the floor of Parliament. So my people accuse me, why are you not asking questions on Magi Highway? And I said, ministers never ask questions on the floor of Parliament, but we lobby in Cabinet. And so this is my opportunity to ask a very hard-working Honorable Minister Michael Nali on Magi Highway. My dear Minister, through the Speaker, I have listened on the floor of Parliament and in my tenureship in Cabinet how the Minister has traveled the country visiting the national roads. And like him and all of us, we believe that roads are very important for nation building. But, Mr. Minister, if I can say that my observation is, while you have traversed the country and visited many of the national roads, my observation is you have not yet visited Magi Highway. It's so close to you, and the people of Rigo and Abau are your best friends and your own people, but you have never visited Magi Highway. If that is true, Mr. Speaker, may I ask the honorable member, a minister, if he can join me on a time soon after the sitting of Parliament to take a ride on Magi Highway to actually see for himself the status of his road, not Abau Road or Rigo Road, it's a national road. So he owes it to the people of Rigo and Abau to visit his infrastructure, which some of us have been able to hold on with our small DSIP components, which we know we cannot. But I can say, Honorable Minister, that when you visit Magi Highway, you will be disappointed at the actual status of the highway. So please, may I invite you to come with me to ride from 6 Mile all the way to Doma in Cloudy Bay, so that you will actually feel the hardship that the people of Abau in particular, because the most deteriorated part of Magi Highway is on the Abau side, not the Rigo side. And so the hardships that we have felt, I know, Minister, you will also, you go feel him na come, Paliament legally too. So may I ask you to come and for a ride. The second question and the final question, Mr. Speaker, is if the Minister can inform the nation, and more particularly the people of Central on the east side, what are the plans that you have to address this deteriorating infrastructure called Magi Highway? Have you actually got plans? Can you inform the Parliament and inform us and assure us that the government does have plans and the actions are being taken? Thank you very much.
Honourable Minister for Works.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. We'd like to thank you, Lord. Good luck, Brother Blomi, Senior, say, Pukatemo. Lord, this is a very important question and me asking me about Magi Highway. Mr. Speaker, Magi Highway Emi no one bla district road or one bla trunk road or one of something. I'm part of what is one of the national highways. Kind of some inside here along Central Province, you got Iritano, Namagi Highway. Me like talks our law, honorable member of SEM. Misa Golo Magi Highway. Me go as far as Hula, lo invitation blow member blow Rigo. Na me go to lo Quikila, na I go past one time invitation blow member blow Rigo, na to governor blow Central. But then me through Osem, me no go labao. But even before me go labao, from Wanemia, Port Moresby City, 6 miles go down Osem to Central City, and me looking Osem road and me stop, all right. But past Central City, you go get a law. Abao we go Rigo, and road and me through me Bagara. Last week that's all me go sem long Hula, logo looking sambla all workman blow me, or sambla match blow me stop. Me drive you go around na. By looking most and sambla lily maintenance and me come up. Start law. Central City go as far as I think go past Wanemia. Road junction near go Hula and I go back and long Quikila. Grading Tassol. Drainage work na cutting bush. Last year allocation by you looking the budget or say we got 10 million kinasta. But this la 10 million kina. Emibla Department of Works in occasion. System na process block government over the years and senis. When all the trust accounts were closed by shut down by the Department of Works, Department of Finance, we do not look after the cash side of the allocations of the Department of Works. We do, of course, look after the technical side of things. Engineers now get the workman staff. And so, on my part, or on the part of Department of Works, we put this particular road on tender last year. And to date, as I speak, it is with the tender evaluation committee, and that is where it is. Meaning that responsibilities have shifted. And so it's not just the road leading down on the Magi Highway. The Magi Highway is also part of this government, Marape Basil government. It's listed as one of those roads that this government would want to take on board as part of the Connect PNG program. So this last story me stop long pla, but to cut the story short, we must talk with them. This particular road got an allocation of 10 million kina last year. And it is still on our program. It has been tendered, but the contract has not been awarded yet. And you would know why the contract has not been awarded. It is really out of my hands. Because the procurement side of things is not with Department of Works. The APC or authority to pre-commit is not with Department of Works. The tender evaluation process is not with Department of Works. And so I am like, Department of Works is like the fourth person down the line. So all the system of government must complete its process until it comes to me, and then I can be held responsible for it. I would love to maintain these roads. On an annual basis, the Department of Works requires 1.5 billion kina a year to maintain all these roads. We have a good team. We can do this work. But on every year budget allocation, we don't get that kind of money. I want to say thank you to the former Prime Minister for allocating 300 million when he was in government to pay outstanding long haul contractors. And I want to thank the Marape government and the Prime Minister for giving the Department of Works in 2019 300 million to pay outstanding contracts. And I want to thank him again for giving the Department of Works another 100 million last year to pay the contractors. In this country, we have over 225 ongoing contracts that is worth over 4 billion kina. Over 4 billion kina. So this is a problem where people got longen. Law come back and law government law close of accounts every year law togosem. People got outstanding law pay more contractors. Is a major problem that we have in this country. But I'll stop here by saying that your question is now taken on board. I will take it to the department and I'll make it my department's business to go and knock on all those doors to find out why this work cannot start. And I'll get back to you and advise you on the status of it. Thank you. Member.
Supplementary question, Member.
Mr. Deputy Speaker, my supplementary question to the Minister is that, is he aware, or let me rephrase it, bridge bays taken off from highways and roads remain under whose ownership? Is it the district authority governments or the national government? I have a case here where the Olangabanga Bridge, which was earmarked for 2 bridges in my district, one for Makunga River to connect up the North Mekeo people, and the other 12 or 13 bays I used, together with Department of Works, to put across the Bioto Creek. The other half of the bridge was stolen from the works compound or yard in my Berena station in Kairuku district and taken to Sogeri, also in Kairuku Hiri. My issue here is, has the minister driven up to Sogeri to see that the poor workmanship on that bridge being bolted up there, that cannot even allow side lifters or container trucks to go through? Is it a temporary bridge or is it a permanent bridge for people of Sogeri and Kairuku? Number 2, yes, I think plenty time me complain lo this la road long. Minister been giving me assurance long, World Bank donor funding long, Vanapa Brown River portion of Hiritano Highway. But we still have the 23-kilometer Brown River Laloki portion. That's in a mess. And it's a similar story to what Governor Allan is saying. There are contractors put there, but the road goes away in a week or 2 weeks' time. So are we going to continue wasting people's money like this, or do sectional sealing so you may get better roads for our people to travel on? Some of us are regular commuters. We come in from the village every day. And we are sick and tired of this. As the current member, I am tired because I've been raising these issues since 2014. On the western end of Kairuku Hiri, the Porabara Road is also in a mess now. So whose responsibility is that? Is it ExxonMobil or the credit scheme people, or is it National Department of Works? Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. I thought these are issues I should raise with the Minister to give some clarity to my people. Thank you.
Minister for Works, I think you have raised many answers to what difficulties the Works Department has gone through, so I don't think answering the question you will talk much on that. I want you to go straight to the question the member raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think the honorable member, unless you want a yes or no, I can say yes and then sit down, or no and sit down. Because if you want to get some answers, it has to be explained properly. Why are we all in a hurry? Okay, well, give me time to explain. The bridge parts, Mr. Speaker, the bridge parts that my brother member is talking about, I would not be aware of it. But when a particular bridge is replaced, the old bridge parts are supposed to come back to Department of Works yard and probably the Department of Works. But if the bridge parts have been taken away by our provincial works engineer or by the provincial works manager, and has decided to split the bridge into 2 or into 3, depending on the length of the bridge, that is the discretion the department has in order to extend services to other parts when you have a replacement. So that answers question number 1. Who took the old bridges away? I don't know. But if it was taken away by the Department of Works to do work somewhere else, we have the right to take the bridge part away to when bridges somewhere else in order to give services to others. 1. The second question, have you driven up to Sogeri? Yes, I have driven up to Sogeri. I know the bridge that you are talking about, the little goats, I don't know whether you call it power station up there, Rauna 1 or Rauna 2, but as you go up the hill, before you turn off to Varirata National Park, yes, I have seen that bridge constructed. It has taken a very, very long time. I'm sorry to say this, but I do not know who the contractor was. But I will have to find it out and see which contractor was awarded that contract, whether it was a pro forma, or whether it was by the provincial government, or by the district authority, or by Department of Works. I will get back to you, honorable member. The World Bank funded project from Brown River or Vanapa going up towards Doa Plantation, and that was done by Dekanai Construction. That section has been completed because it was more or less maintenance, not so much of rehabilitation. The second part of that has then moved on to Epo Kerema. Epo Kerema has already been awarded, and upon advice from the Central Supply and Tenders Board or from NPC, I will take that submission to NEC for NEC approval, and a contract will be awarded. But the sad part of that story is from Vanapa coming back to 9 Mile. It's a very bad, Brown River coming back to Laloki River and coming to 9 Mile. I was told that World Bank had a variation to that particular section, but to date, you are telling me I have not driven on that road for quite a while. So I will get some information from the department, and then I will get back to you. But let me say this. It is very, very difficult I said earlier that the Department of Works requires 1.5 billion a year to upkeep our roads to satisfactory or to acceptable condition. We don't get that kind of money. And you know why we don't get that kind of money? Our annual budget, putting together every other service that government provides, gives me a ceiling, and the best they can allocate would be around the 500 million, maybe 600 million, maybe 300 million. But when the money comes, it comes in drips and drops. It's not only about this government. It has always been the case. So when you look at all the delays and all the maintenance that have not been done over the years, you will start to see the roads deteriorating. Start to deteriorate. Honorable ministers, honorable members, Mr. Speaker, Deputy, under the legislation that we've just passed, the PNG Road Management Act and Fund Act, and in 2021 work plan that was launched at Laguna a couple of weeks ago, gives the provincial governments now the responsibility to look after provincial roads, meaning that when funding is allocated in the national appropriation, provincial roads come directly to the provinces. And for the districts, it comes directly to the districts. I am now responsible for the national highways and Connect PNG. So if you somehow get a little bit of money from the budgetary allocation, please use him good. Our officers will always be on the ground to assist you, so we maintain some standards, but utilize whatever little is allocated properly for your roads. But it does not hurt notifying the department just in case we find something small to assist you. Thank you, Deputy Speaker.
Clerk, we still have time. The Honourable Member for Young Resources.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. My question without notice goes to the Minister for State Enterprises. Deputy Speaker, my district receives power from the power station in Wewak. We have a power line from Wewak that runs through the spine of my district for 120 kilometers, saving all our high schools, primary schools, health centers, our district headquarters, and even the private companies which are in my district. Over 2 months ago, Mr. Speaker, a road contractor who is building a new bridge, or is building 3 new bridges along the Sepik highway, paid PNG Power to relocate one section of the line, about 3 lines, in order for the road to be rerouted onto the new bridge. This job would normally take 2 days to complete. However, Mr. Deputy Speaker, it is now 3 months. PNG Power has put off power to my entire district, suffering all our schools, health centers, villages who are hooked up to power, even the big Sepik agriculture project within the Sepik plains. Everyone is now forced to buy generators, buy expensive petrol, and are suffering big time. Mr. Speaker, to make it worse, our efforts to get PNG Power to restore power over the last 3 months has failed. They got the money, the contractor is blaming PNG Power. No one is doing the work, and they've caused enormous hardship to every one of the customers along the grid within my district. Mr. Speaker, to make it even worse, PNG Power is paying for diesel in Wewak and losing revenue for 3 solid months. And no one seems to care, from top management here all the way down to branch management in Wewak. They're happy to lose thousands and thousands of kina in lost revenue. Mr. Speaker, my questions to the Minister are: one, is it the PNG power culture to not worry about customer service? Because it seems quite entrenched. No one cares. Number two, is it the PNG power culture not to worry about revenue generation? You're happy to lose income for 3 solid months when you are burning expensive diesel, generating the power but not able to sell. My question number 3, Mr. Acting Speaker, is can the Minister give an undertaking to my people that he will direct PNG Power Management and the board to restore power to my district within the next 24 to 48 hours? And number 4, can the Minister give an undertaking to Parliament that you will cause an investigation to be undertaken to investigate why it's taken them 3 months when they've been paid by the contractor to just relocate a small line? It takes you 2 days. And can those responsible for losing thousands and thousands of kina in revenue, an enormous hardship to my people, be taken to task and if need be sacked for such careless and incompetent work? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Minister for State and Enterprise.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker. I'd like to thank Honourable Richard Marape for this. Again, very, very important questions. Let me start by, Mr. Deputy Speaker, by pointing out that there is no room for complacency. There is no room for incompetent people. There is no room for people who are not able to do their job in PNG Power for that matter, or for any of those companies that our people own through the Kumal Conservative Holdings Group of companies. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank him for bringing this matter to my attention. I must admit that I was not aware of the problems that are being encountered by our people on that side of the country. And I want to assure the hard-working good member that as soon as Parliament adjourns tomorrow, I will make it my business to attend to this matter immediately. Mr. Deputy Speaker, this is not the only occasion where people have complained about the lack of service being provided by employees of PNG Power. There is an entrenched culture of incompetence, and most of the employees, I must admit, are mediocre. And I am not here to protect people who get paid every Friday and yet are unable to deliver for their people. There is no room for this kind of people in these companies. So I want to, I've heard the complaints from our good member, and I can assure him that as soon as Parliament adjourns, I will attend to this and I will make sure this incident is investigated properly, so that I will use this as an opportunity to make an example to employees of PNG Power as well as all the employees of all our SOEs. Similar occurrences of incompetence have been reported, and most of our people have complained, and this is not an isolated incident. And as Minister, I must admit that we have to work together, and I urge all of you to even report incidents where our people are found lacking in their responsibilities to provide service to our country. And I will attend to them immediately. But in this case, Mr. Speaker, I was not aware of the problem that is confronting our people there. And I must also say that when the Minister of Agriculture had a similar issue, he brought it to my attention. I did my best to put it to the people concerned. I am not sure that they have been able to fix it, but in this case, I can assure him once again that I will make it my duty to attend to this problem and report to him later on this evening. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
Member for Yalimbu Pangia.
Mr. Deputy Speaker and Mr. Speaker, Deputy Speaker, I wish to join the member for TVWAN and extend my questions to the Treasurer about the COVID loans that he has tried to answer the questions on the cost of those. These COVID loans are now adding into billions of kina, Mr. Treasurer, can you be assured this Honorable House where you are spending this money so that our people and our country can be aware of the spending that you are doing to address the COVID spread that is happening far and wide in this country? Could you give us the exact time frame when you will launch that full report of these loans that you are getting? Mr. Speaker, why I ask that question is these are support coming from international organizations, but nonetheless they are loans that will be repaid by our country and our people. The second question, Mr. Speaker, is about our economy. I want to ask the Treasurer, is he aware that there are two reports that has been released recently? One is by Moody's International Ratings Agency, saying that we have a shortfall of internal revenue by 2.7 billion kina, and thus rating our country's economy from stable to negative. What is the government and your office doing to addressing this issue so that we can have a stable rating of our economy so that investors can have confidence to invest in our country? Secondly, are you aware that the central bank has released a monetary policy statement recently, the recent statement which indicate that our economy has declined by 2% in 2020, and of course it is continued to project a further decline in 2021. What is your office doing to address this decline of well over 5% of our economy, which is a substantial decline given that the state of the economy we are in? Mr. Speaker, my third question is the Treasurer aware that our economy is now in recession? Is he aware that whilst loans are increasing, our exchange rate is declining? There is no foreign currency in the country. Inflation is going up, prices of tin fish and rice are going up. Mr. Speaker, investor confidence is down, and Mr. Speaker, unemployment is going up right throughout the country. What is your office doing to address these issues? And my final question is about warrants. Mr. Speaker, we are now into the first quarter of 2021. I am told by many departments and hospitals right throughout the country that they have received no operational funding from your department and Department of Finance. Can you address this as what is happening? Why are the warrants not being released, thus making sure that the operational funds are released to these organizations so they can continue to serve our people? And is it true that warrants have been authorized by your consultant in Canberra before it has been released by our officials here in Wagani? Can you confirm or deny that? Mr. Speaker, we are in the first quarter, which is 4 months, is almost over. Our country needs to continue to provide services to our people. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker.
The Honourable Treasurer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the questions put forward by the member for Ialibu Pangia. They're very, very comprehensive, Mr. Speaker, requires a lot of details. And judging from the last question on warrants, I'd have to say his contacts at the Treasury seem to be a lot better than mine. But in relation to the other three questions, Mr. Speaker, I think the main one that he has asked is where has all of the COVID-19 money gone? That was the first question. And am I aware, the second question was on Moody's, am I aware of the outlook given by them? I haven't yet assessed fully that particular statement. I understood that came out last evening, so well done. Member for Ialibu Pangia, you're on top of that work. So I'll respond to that after you give me something in writing. And then the last question was on the warrants. But let me go to the main question for this afternoon. Where has the COVID monies gone? Mr. Speaker, The COVID funding that we had put aside to address both the health and economic sectors totals about 5.7 billion kina. If you recall, that was an economic stimulus package which we had announced last year. And the short answer to his question is that the money has gone where it is supposed to have gone. Apart from the individual instances of misuse that we hear reported in the media, Mr. Speaker, which I'm obviously not aware and cannot report on those. But let me just firstly explain there is some misunderstanding promoted a lot by the opposition that all of the 5.7 billion kina was to be spent on the health response to COVID-19. That's not the case, Mr. Speaker. And there's been a lot of ignorance discussed in social media publicly by, well, the leader of the opposition, whose dangerous misinformation on the risks of our medically endorsed vaccine program has undermined some of the very good initiatives by the Minister for Health and the department itself. Mr. Speaker, there are two wars on COVID-19. Let's be clear about that. A health war and an economic war. Almost all of the 5.7 billion kina was on the economic war. That's why we called it an economic stimulus package, not a COVID-19 health package. So overall, the economic stimulus package performed quite well. And if I can just go through very quickly again its components so that we could understand where that money has been spent. Number one, Mr. Speaker, if you recall last year we announced a 2.5 billion COVID-19 bond raising. All of these were successfully raised despite a very fragile and a once-in-a-century risk to our financial markets. All of these funds supported all of our budget activities last year, not just health, but also education, law and order, and infrastructure. Number two, if you all recall in this Parliament, we announced 1.5 billion raising in friendly foreign support. We exceeded this amount, demonstrating that there is trust in the Marape government. Total receipts in 2020 were about 4.4 billion, and this is part of the dividend, the results of more open, transparent, responsible budgeting. We had a dividend of nearly 2.9 billion in better, cheaper financing, and of course this has helped tremendously to repay the former expensive debt by your government. Importantly, it has supported the current critical demands to increase health funding and support the economy from all of the COVID-19 shocks that we are all experiencing. Thirdly, members of Parliament will recall an initiative where we extended a 600 million kina line of credit from the Bank of Papua New Guinea through two initiatives, lowering the cash reserve requirement, if you recall then, from 10 to 7%, which released about 643 million, so we exceeded our target, and of course reducing the KFR, the Kina facility rate, from 5 to 3%. Whilst we're still waiting for data to be provided by the Bank of PNG, I understand from the 3-month moratorium that we had to try and assist businesses for an interest and principal loan repayment holiday. That resulted in about 1.1 billion kina worth of loans that were provided as a holiday, affecting about, if I recall correctly, about 16% of our businesses in this country. So that was quite effective. Members of Parliament will remember the fourth out of the 6 measures that we announced last year was trying to release 500 million kina from the superannuation funds to assist our people who are out of work. Members of Parliament will recall that we had commenced some legislative changes. We were quite late, so that didn't really help them, but they nevertheless still accessed a lot of those funds because the 6-month period for which they were out of work made them eligible. We don't have much visibility on that, and as soon as I get some figures, I'm happy to report back to Parliament. And the 5th measure was, of course, our economic stimulus package, and I'll detail more of that in my statement tomorrow. So, Mr. Speaker, I thank the member for that particular question, and for the remaining 2 questions on the Bank of Papua New Guinea warrants. I'll ask him to table in writing, and I'll respond back to him. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable members, our question time has lapsed. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, it's clear for Parliament to move a motion without notice.
Is the leave granted? Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Mr. Ayatambu be appointed Chairman of the Permanent Parliamentary Committee on Public Accounts.
The question is that the motion be agreed to. Those in favour say aye. Aye. Those against say no. Ayes have it. Leader of Government Business.
Mr. Speaker, I move the following amendments to the Special Parliamentary Committee on Gender-Based Violence as follows. 1. Item insert the following new paragraph. Inquire into the connections between gender-based violence and broader issues and root causes regarding gender equality and women's empowerment, including women's economic empowerment, women's political participation, and the impact of early family planning, cultural, traditional, and religious beliefs, and broader social norms. 2. After the word departments, before the word provincial, insert the following words. The Royal PNG Constabulary and related enforcement and prosecution services to courts. 3. Immediately after paragraph F, insert the following new paragraph.